I started dancing at the age of 3 at the Catherine Dunham School. And at the age of 5, the casting people for King and I went to Chinatown looking for children. And so we all came up on the train with our mothers, and we went to the audition. And there were hundreds and hundreds of children there. But the next day I saw my photograph in the paper with, like 300 kids. And I was in the front, and I got the show. I also had to read, and I didn't know how to read lines, so my mother had to feed them to me. But I did get the role of Princess Ying Yawalak at 5. Most of the kids were professional. They went to professional children's school. They had been in shows. I don't know where they came from, but, I always felt like an outsider because I had never done anything. But they got it, and so it was up to me to get it because I did not want to be left behind. And, it wasn't intricate choreography. The thing that fascinated me was the Small House of Uncle Thomas, and that's what I wanted to do. And I used to watch the girls, the dancers, warm up, and I would ask my mother to speak to them and ask them where I could learn that. And Lee Theodore and Yuriko had gone to Martha Graham and a Balanchine school, and that really influenced my decision at 5 to have a career as a dancer.
Who was your biggest influence?
And I was on track. I didn't want to do anything else. That's what I wanted to do. So the Richard Rodgers music, Jerome Robbins dancing, those two combined really influenced me. Being on stage was very easy for me. I learned everybody's lines. I knew everybody's dances. I even learned Small House of Uncle Thomas. And we put on shows upstairs on the 8th floor at the St. James Theater. And I played all the parts, and I directed everybody. So I was directing and choreographing at 5. I just remember seeing those people out there that made the decisions to change things or tell us what to do. And I was always interested in what was going on out there. And it was Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein and John Van Druten. And they directed me. And I didn't know what it was to be directed by, great people. I just knew that I was doing the best that I could do. And it was a big game, and I loved it. The Small House of Uncle Thomas was written by Harriet Beecher Stowe. That's how they say it in the show. And they took the novel, and it's about a runaway slave, and they turned it into an Asian theme where Eliza runs away from Simon of Legree. And once again, the storytelling and the dance and the combination of the two has really helped me in my choreographing and making sure that I really tell the story. The Small House of Uncle Thomas was the performance that Top Tim gives to the English that have arrived in Bangkok. And it fascinated me because it was storytelling and then the dance. And that has influenced me also. Always tell your story in your dance. Agnes DeMille also had done that in Oklahoma. She had her leading characters, she danced their fears and their desires in the Dream Ballet. All of that, it's all back in my memory, but it has really influenced me in my choreography. The Small House of Uncle Thomas, the moves were wonderful. Jerome Robbins combined his dancing with the Balinese dancing, and Yuriko, who had been Martha Graham's leading dancer, she was the lead. It was so fascinating being around all of this talent. And we lived, we say lived because that's where they put us, on the 8th floor. They would allow a few of us to come down and watch. And I would imitate the moves, and finally one of the girls became the Buddha, and she could watch the choreography, and we danced it, we lived it. I loved that show. I really did. I was in King and I for 2.5 years. I outgrew my costume, and I was one of the first to leave. And that was heartbreaking. Richard Rodgers, I was so young, I knew him as Mr. Rodgers. He always came around, but I didn't really know who he was. And, what he had written, I knew he was the composer, but what did composers do? But he was always around, and everyone loved the children. The original cast, they always kept in touch with us afterwards also, sending us cards and things like that. After 3 years, or 2.5 years being in The King and I walked down the street and I looked back and I said, I'll be back. Well, a few years later, there was an audition for Flower Drum Song, and so I told my mother, I've got to go. And in the meantime, I had been taking dance. And there was a big audition for children as well as dancers. And we are back at the St. James Theater in the alley again. And I went in, and I think they had about 10 or 15 children walk in and stand on stage. And I was eliminated, and I was crushed. And as I was leaving, practically in tears, Mr. Rodgers and Mr. Hammerstein walked into the theater, and I said to my mother, I'm going back in. They'll remember me. And so I got past the monitor, and I was put on stage again, and I heard this voice, Baayork Lee, step out. And it was Mr. Rodgers. And we started talking, and he said, gosh, you've grown, and I had gotten taller. And the next day, I was in the papers with he and Mr. Hammerstein, and I had gotten the show. So he was responsible for me getting into Flower Drum Song. And then, because I was in the other generation, I could not be in Fan Tan Fanny because they were strippers. But they needed a cover for Anita Ellis to sing Fan Tan Fanny. And I loved Pat Suzuki, and so I bought all of her albums, and I would sing like her all the time. And because of that, I got the cover to Anita Ellis and Fan Tan Fanny. Mr. Rodgers gave that to me. Flower Drum Song is about the older generation and the young Oriental American generation trying to break away and become Americans, and the older generation just, still bringing the old country and the old ideas to America. I'm still going through that now, so I think it's wonderful that that they tackled the subject. It needed to be addressed.
Talk about what had changed in those 8 years in Broadway, in musicals. Had anything changed? What was the buzz about Flower Drum Song? What was different about Broadway?
Being Asian at the time was really important because we had Majority of One, Flower Drum Song, and Susie Wong Across the Street. 3 shows that had Asians in it, or American Orientals, whatever we were called in those days. I think that was really very important. It has changed now. We have Pan-Asian theater, but for so many years, there was nothing for American Chinese, American Asian. I'm hoping that Chorus Line and my part has helped to give short little Chinese girls some work. Mr. Rodgers' music is definitely danceable. And why? Because I think more than anybody else, he really got into the soul of the dance and the choreographer while he was writing it. Movement is so easy with his music. You don't have to struggle. Your body just responds to it, and choreographing is not always easy, but I think it's easy with his music. When you walk in a room and you have a Rodgers score, as a dancer and as a choreographer, I think he gets to the soul of the dancer, of the choreographer. The music allows you to be free. There's nothing that limits you with his music.
Close your eyes for a second and think of the great choreography that you've seen that Balanchine might have done, or DeMille or Robbins. Describe one of those. Just, give us an example on why it's so soaring, so wonderful.
The Dream Ballet in Oklahoma. Every single character that she portrayed, every single movement that she gave those dancers, you live with them through her choreography. And that's what I want to do when I choreograph. I want my dancers to live the choreography, live the moment, live the scene, live the dialogue. When all of those elements are in place, the audience breathes with what's happening on the stage. Or they stop breathing, hopefully. And that's what we want them to do. We want them to just live and breathe with us every single second.
This video raises questions, and I need for you to be extremely honest in the comments when answering them. And just so you know, I have 3 questions. Number 1, at what age did you start your passion? Number 2, do you love to dance? And number 3, what's your favorite music to dance to? Now please be honest in the comments when answering these questions. Share this video with anyone you deem necessary. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.